Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Heal from the Hurt. This episode will be about letting go. And I got the idea from it was one of the comments that I got on one of my videos about basically letting go and making peace. And someone asked in the comments, how do you let go? So I wanted to give you some tips. I also have tips in my book, Heal from the Hurt, Life After a Breakup. But for the most part, I'll give you the cliff notes. Now, for me, now this is basically all what happened to me, and I'm just giving it to you. Everyone else may have their own way, but for me, things didn't change for me as far as letting go until I was sick and tired. When I was sick and tired of having the conversations about things, when I was sick and tired of just thinking about it, I remember I went to God one night and I cried myself to sleep. It was like the worst thing. And I was crying out to God that I wanted to be done with it. And the next morning, I remember it was like a burden lifted off of me, and it was like I didn't want to talk about it, think about it, all that stuff. Like God took it away from me. And I know some people may not understand it, or it may be foreign to some people, but that is what happened to me. And I remember I was telling somebody else about it, and it was like, oh no, but if you still have feelings about it, it's okay. And I'm like, dude, I don't even want to talk about it. And all those things. And it's like, and I had to tell people over and over, it's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it, all that stuff. And they just didn't understand because in most people's logical sense, as long as we were together, we were off and on for 15 years. And I was like, oh, it takes twice as long for you to get over somebody. I'm like, dude, I'm not about to spend another 20 or 15 years or even 30 on somebody who's not even in my life anymore. I don't have that to do. And I was just so sick of it. And by the grace of God, like God heard my cry and it was over. Like as far as that. And by the grace of God, I also have like a high detachment. So if for the most part, if I am done with something and I say it and I make up my mind, like I'm by the grace of God, like I am done with that situation. But to also help you guys and give you other tips, one, I believe you have to be sick and tired. Once you're sick and tired, then it is time for you to do the work. Yes, you pray and you ask God. And now some of you guys, it may not be overnight, but I know like for me, God was probably just waiting for me to just say it, and He was like, that was all He was waiting for. But on top of that, as well as that, um, remember why you left, or why you possibly want this situation to be over with if you're in that type of situation. Because some of you guys, it may have been the opposite. They just may have told you to leave or whatever. But you also have to remember, don't romanticize or fantasize the situation. Because one of my biggest problems was I kept thinking of only the good sides of things, and I never like looked at the full picture of me possibly like crying, you know, every night, begging the other person to be there and all those things. And that was a big part of it too. I had to really see it for what it really was. And at first, I really wasn't seeing it that way. Like I said, I was like, oh no, we could have did this, or I was so hung up on the history. Like, we were together for so long, and I had to also realize that just because we were together for so long doesn't mean that I was happy. And it also didn't mean that we were meant to be together. It was just that we were just present, or we were used to each other. So that is something as well. Be careful about romanticizing or fantasizing that situation. And you have to make up in your mind that you don't want to hold on to the possibilities of what it could have been, because that was another thing as far as well as me as well. It was just like I was like, oh, we could have got married, we could have got this, and then it's like, no, in my situation, um, my ex told me he was never going to change, and I was basically to the point that wasn't going to work for me because I was, by the grace of God, I was always evolving, I was always changing, and I wasn't happy in that situation. So if at the end of the day he said he wasn't going to change, I had to make it up in my mind that I didn't want to live like this for the rest of my life. And so, even for me, I had to make that change. And like I said, dating somebody and they tell you that they're never going to change and you're not even happy in that state, that's just not going to work. So I had to look at all of those things when it was time to also let go. Because like I said, sometimes you're just stuck in the whole romanticizing, fantasizing, or the potential of what you guys could have been. And you have to basically see reality for what it was. And that will also help you to let go. Another thing is start focusing on yourself. When you focus on yourself, it is the best thing for you, especially when you're trying to let go. Because at the end of the day, you start really seeing things for yourself. Like, you see the other layers to you. For me, it was a lot of things for me I didn't deal with throughout my life. So I didn't deal with the hurt and pain that for my childhood, and it snowballed into my relationship. And then it was like once my relationship was over, I had to deal with all of that stuff. And so when you start focusing on yourself and like even your mental health, your physical health, all those things, that also helps you to let go, because then all of a sudden, hopefully, you'll find peace. And once you find that peace, you don't want to even let go of that peace. And so that also helps you to let go, because now all of a sudden you're putting yourself first. You're focusing on yourself. You start dating yourself. You start seeing more about yourself. And that also helps you once again to let go, because you don't want that pain again. Or if you were in a traumatic situation, you don't want that pain again. You don't want to relive that situation. So, like I said, once again, that also helps you to let go. Another thing that helps you to let go as well is getting rid of people around you that keeps reminding you of that situation. This may not be easy, but you have to control the conversations that people is having around you. When you are done with the situation, some people, all they know you for is that situation. And so every time they come around you, what they do, they bring it up. Oh, so what happened with you and such? Did such and such, did they get in contact with you? And you like, dude, I don't want to talk about that. Like I said, in the beginning of the podcast. And at the end of the day, you have to control that as well, because some people, they just want the tea. And them bringing that up all the time, that is another thing that keeps you stuck, because you have to go back to that memory bank and bring that back up. Or sometimes, especially if you're not ready, that'll just bring up more emotions. And then you go off in a tangent talking about it. And you're like, well, I didn't even want to talk about this. But some people don't have a problem with keeping you stuck because it helps them. It is hard because sometimes when you have moved on, other people around you haven't moved on. And it's not even just for your relationship. They may not have even moved on for their relationship. And so in order for them to basically relate to you, they want to keep you stuck in that situation so you guys can relate to each other and basically be stuck in that situation, if that makes sense. Some people don't want you to let go because they don't want to do the work, and they no longer relate to you, if that makes sense. So at the end of the day, they want to keep you stuck. So in order to also let go, you have to let go of some people who remain stuck so that at the end of the day, you can actually move on as well. So to recap, because I don't know if I have any more steps, but to recap, how to let go is this: be sick and tired, pray, stop those conversations, focus on yourself, and also make sure like the people around you is fully aware that this is, where you're going, and that is not the conversations that you want to have anymore. And once you start doing that, because internally you're going to have to do the work. And even though God took away those feelings and stuff like that, doesn't mean that they didn't creep back up or anything like that. But you have to control the narrative in your mind and say, no, I'm not going to talk about it. No, I'm not going to, whatever. But behind closed doors, I had to deal with it and I had to do the work. And it was digging up things from the root and dealing with those things. Because, like I said, recently I realized that a lot of times, especially in my childhood, people didn't want me to see who I really was. And even in my relationship, you know what I mean? People really didn't want me to see my own light. And because of that, they put their own insecurities on me. And so now it's like I had to deal with all of those things. And that's what I mean. Like, you have to go from the root. And a lot of my low self-esteem, all of those things that happened from my childhood. And now, like, from dealing with all of that, and it's like, you know what I mean? I don't want to, I can recognize those things. I can let go of those things. So that is what I was talking about. Just for an example, when you start focusing on yourself and you have to deal with those things, and some things are intertwined, some things are mixed, but it is a lot of hurt that you're going to have to deal with and chisel away at just to get to the point of letting all of that go. Think about if there's a tree, or like a tree that has been planted somewhere. Once you dig it up and you go down to the roots, there is probably, rocks and everything, stones still stuck to them. And, some things you can shake off, but some things you're going to have to chisel away at. And that is what it is about letting go. It's not just, yes, God did, wake me up some days and I never thought about it again, or I didn't think about it, whatever. But it was still some work and some residue that I still had to chisel away at. So at the end of the day, it is possible to let go, but you have to make a decision in your mind and also do the work, and do not allow other people to keep you stuck in something that you no longer relate to, you don't want to live in anymore, or anything. And sometimes you're going to have to be isolated for the most part, and you're going to have to deal with these things. But try to make sure that you have someone around you that you can basically talk to, and they don't make you feel like, oh, here she go or here he go bringing this up again. Somebody that you could talk freely to, and they'll help you through it as well, because that is a part of it, and they will pour into you when you don't have anything. So I hope this helps. If I think of any more things, I would definitely come back and make a part 2 to this. But I hope that this helps you thus far. So once again, I'll go over everything. Basically, to let go, what you would need to do is, 1, be sick and tired, be fed up, pray about it. Make sure that the people around you is not bringing it up, because you don't want to talk about it anymore. It's time for you to let go and be done with it, and focus on yourself. Once you start focusing on yourself and seeing the root of problems or issues, then all of a sudden, things will start to change as well. Start dating yourself. Start putting yourself first and loving on yourself, and you'll get right through it, and you'll be able to start letting go. So once again, I hope this helps. And I love you guys, and realize that you can too heal from the hurt.